for public record. Thank you, Kevin. Just a reminder, if you are not contributing or speaking, please mute yourself. If you're comfortable to be on camera, please do so. But if you're not or doing something, please feel free to go off. I will be going in and off because I have a little bit happening on my end. But in the meantime, you are in the very capable and good hands of Maggie with help from Fredy and Kevin as well. So that's all I have for sort of the setup. I will hand it off to Kevin to give us some updates from the city. Kevin.
Yeah, I'll mute myself first. Hi, everyone. Just some quick updates from the city's public engagement team. First is that April 2022 is Arbor Month in Beaverton. The mayor has signed a proclamation recognizing the importance of trees and parks, which is very apropos to tonight's meeting if you've looked at the agenda. And the proclamation also encourages tree planting and care throughout Beaverton. Some points from that are that the city maintains nearly 40,000 trees to enhance community beauty and improve the quality of our neighborhoods. And Beaverton has been recognized for the past 28 years as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation. The city recently also partnered with Friends of Trees to plant approximately 1,150 native trees and shrubs along the Fano Creek Trail. And if you'd like to learn more about this, you can go to beavertonoregon.gov/trees. Continuing with the trees theme, the Highland Neighborhood Association Committee recently received a 2022 Oregon Urban and Community Forestry Award and was recognized for planting dozens of trees during volunteer-led planting events. We also have an announcement that the new website is going live tomorrow. So check that out tomorrow if you want at beavertonoregon.gov. The redesigned site is going to hopefully improve the user experience for the nearly 1 million annual visits that it receives every year. And it will also highlight timely and relevant information for community members to navigate through a more intuitive and user-friendly interface. So you'll find information there about city services and city programs. Our meetings will be posted there, so you'll be seeing some changes to how agendas and meeting minutes and whatnot are posted. But that'll all be there, and tomorrow it launches, so that's exciting. And then one last announcement is for April 28th, that is going to be the Beaverton Voters Forum. So you're all invited and tell your friends and your networks to join for an evening with the candidates who are running to represent you all. This is a way to directly hear from candidates for local office and to get your questions answered. The positions that are going to be have folks running for them are position 1, 2, 3, and 5. And the forum is going to be, like I said, on April 28th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. at the PRCA. So also a chance to go check that out if you haven't been down there yet. So if you're looking to attend in person, you need to go to beavertonoregon.gov/voters-forum and reserve free tickets. Or you can go to, you can also go to thereser.org to learn about the safety requirements for attending a live event. And this will also be broadcasted and available in the days after the event online and on public access television. That is all I have for announcements. So I am going to hand it over to Maggie for the next segment on the agenda.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all again. Just want to do a quick minutes approval from the previous meeting. Hopefully you all had a chance to look at the minutes. So if you could verbally or give a thumbs up that you approve the minutes from the last meeting. Okay. Looks like we're good. And then also approval for the compiled Cooper Mountain project comments that we all contributed to. Approval, thumbs up. Any objections? Okay, we're good. So we're gonna move forward, and I'm going to hand this off to Counselor Hartmeyer-Prigg, who's going to give us our council update.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm hoping you all saw my email. So one of the things I got to meet with Qasim, Maggie, and Kevin, I think it was last week. Yeah, because today's Monday. And one of the things we talked about is I'm going to try and send my update in advance, and whether that is to create a little more space in your agenda, because I know you have so much to cover in your limited amount of time together, or to have our time be opportunity for discussion. That's going to be my goal every month. I know this one was very late, but as I was preparing for council tomorrow, there was a second thing that I really wanted y'all to kind of have your eyes on. So in addition to this Cooper Mountain Community Plan, I sent over that email about the expanded recycling program. So I wanted to actually reserve my time to hear from y'all about either of those two topics. The one question I had on the Cooper Mountain Community Plan was, as I've been looking at the proposals, I also really love all of the aspects of the roads and the climate and the natural space aspects of option C, but have been kind of looking at option B in terms of the actual housing side, because I have concerns that we are going to just build a ton of apartments, but we're maybe not creating as much potential opportunity for affordable home ownership. So that's kind of the question I pose back to y'all. I would love to hear a little input on that. And or if you have any feedback to share with me on the expanded recycling program. And I think we have 5 minutes. So I'm going to take notes on anything y'all say, but I would love to hear from you on those two things. Maggie, are you okay with me calling on hands? Is that okay? Okay. All right, Reggie.
Thank you, Counselor. I just want to suggest for Cooper Mountain with housing, you talk about you've got apartments, then you've got the need for affordable home ownership. So why not combine the two? I don't think we should be building mostly single family houses, or arguably none at all. But you can still build dense buildings and use that land that you would have saved to preserve green spaces and create new green spaces, new opportunities for tree canopy. But within those denser developments, including fourplexes, triplexes, townhouses, everything that's kind of discussed in the Housing Options Project, require owner occupancy. So this will encourage homeownership and also prevent the newer units from being bought up by the ultra wealthy and other housing investment companies. And this will help increase the livability of the neighborhood. Not to say that folks who are renting are not contributing, but we need to encourage, smaller units to be sold. And then, maybe if you've got a fourplex, you just require that the owner of the building lives in one of those units, and then the remaining units, X number of units, are then rented out. So what I'm getting at is having that ownership on site, where the owner maybe doesn't live out of state or out of the area. That really helps increase the quality of the neighborhoods and the quality of the interactions between the different families.
Thank you, Reggie. Yeah, I definitely think middle housing is a huge key component of this plan and of us getting adequate housing. So I really like that idea of potentially requiring owner occupancy in one of the, up to quadplexes. I think my bigger concern was with apartments, we're seeing a lot less actual condos being built, right? And I know that that's an ownership opportunity. I'm worried will it get built, right? So I think there's still a lot to explore, and I still have questions I want to get answered around it. But yeah, it's a great point on, I like the idea of that owner occupant as piece of it. And I think I saw another hand. Okay.
Yeah, I'm go by Reid. My hand had been up, but it was echoing all of what Reggie just said, and primarily that if what we're concerned about is affordable housing opportunities, we really are looking at middle housing, right? That increasing opportunities for the like standalone homes and the types of homes that would be built there right now as new developments is not going to be accomplishing that goal. And looking at the differences in housing opportunities or housing options for option C versus option B, middle housing was about the same, like a couple % difference between them, whereas option B really was increasing dramatically the amount of single occupancy or single dwelling lots.
Thank you, Reid.
Thank you, Ashley. One quick thing to touch on the recycling heads up that you gave. I think we were talking to Scott Keller, who is here, in terms of wanting to partner, to understand, to get a little bit more detail, because there is definitely a significant area of opportunity that we see in terms of where we can lean in and make some recommendations around that. So we are working towards it and hoping to build on it. I didn't see if there was any explicit vote happening tomorrow from what I saw, more like looking for general direction, and would love to continue to partner with Scott and the team to say, hey, here's where and how we can hopefully inform and make recommendations coming from the Beaverton Climate Action Plan.
Yeah, it's a great point. Tomorrow is just work session. And so I just know that a vote will come. And so it's a good opportunity during work session for me to get to give input and help shape where that policy heads. And when it comes time for a vote, that's kind of set. So this is a good opportunity for us. It doesn't mean the conversation's over. I just know that they're going to want to get, some direction from council tomorrow night on the recycling. Yeah, Maggie.
I just had a quick question about how this aligns with what the county is planning to do, because Washington County also has an expanded recycling program that they're voting on, I think the 26th of this month. So I was wondering if whatever decision Beaverton makes is affected by that as well, or if we're trying to align the two things, or if you had any information about that.
I might tag in Scott in case you know a little bit more here. I don't know if you're, sorry to put you on the spot. If you would be able to chime in on that.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Keller. I am a senior program manager at the city, and I supervise the sustainability program and the recycling program. And I've listened in to a number of your meetings, and usually in the background. So hello, I think for the first time that I've actually spoken. But yes, to Maggie and Councillor Hartmeyer-Prigg, the council's direction to staff when we last had a work session on this topic was to work on a hauler provided program and align it as much as possible with Washington County and Hillsborough's programs that they were also working on. So we've had much communication over the last months with Hillsborough staff and Washington County staff so that our programs will be very, very similar, if not identical, if they're actually rolled out by each of the respective jurisdictions. That's what we're seeking council direction on tomorrow, is that are they still committed to us working on this program? And then we would kind of work out all the final details and certainly want to involve the Climate Action Task Force and how that would work.
Thank you, Scott. Jennifer?
I don't recall if this was maybe a county survey I took about expanded recycling services. And it seemed like it was primarily asking if you were willing to pay more on your waste and recycling bill to have these expanded services. And I was wondering how we would be able to offer those services to low-income households as well that may not be able to afford a higher bill, or apartment and condo dwellers who don't have access to many of those services at all. So That would be my concern with it.
That's a concern of staff also, that we want to figure out how that would work. For the initial phase of the program, it is largely focused on single family and duplexes and quadplexes. Basically, if a customer already has an individual account with the garbage hauler, then the service would be available to them. But we want to continue conversations so that other multifamily living situations, higher density in condos and apartments could have that service also, and how the garbage haulers or whomever would set up those accounts. But we're definitely interested in that. And we're also recognizing that the overall program that's available to everyone, we kind of have an economy of scale where we can keep the rates down by having everybody participate. And optional programs are more complicated with that, but certainly something we're looking into, both for our overall program and for this in particular, because we know not everybody can afford to do what they want to do that's good for the environment.
Thank you, Scott, for helping on those. If there's any other questions or comments, please let me know. And also feel free to email me. Food waste composting, that can actually go in your street composting bin, the one for like yard debris. Food can go into those compost bins already. Oh, that part I can't answer to then.
It is, food composting is not currently available at multifamily situations, but that is a project on our work plan to figure out how we could enable that service to be provided at places where they do not currently have yard debris carts, and how to make that work and also not increase the contamination. So we have a bigger contamination issue with shared service than we do when you have individual services. But it's on the work plan, we just don't have the answer yet.
Thank you, Rebecca, for the question. And thank you, Scott, for the answer. Jennifer.
I wanted to share something that I thought was really neat with trash and recycling services on a trip I took to Scotland a few years ago. Just outside of a community park, they actually had sections of wheelie bins for people to bring their recycling and trash down into an area that people would able to be accessed and have those amenities available to them if they weren't available in their multi-family dwelling unit.
It's a great idea. I know, I think we have to get creative about it, you know, and how can we create access to in places that it's not currently. That's a good theme for everything we do in local government. Okay, well, I think I have some great feedback from y'all, and thank you for putting your time into your feedback on Cooper Mountain. It's very appreciated. So also feel free to send me feedback on how you like this format, if you think that this is going to be helpful and productive. And yeah, my goal will be to maybe get my update to Kevin. So when he sends out the agenda, you have my council liaison update in there too. And you'll get that in advance of this meeting. And hopefully save a little time on your agenda for some of the other things you want to work on together. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
All right, well, it looks like we're actually ahead of schedule. So next up, Nathan, are you in the room? And I think Amy is with you as well. I'm not sure who's going to give the presentation or the chat.
I am. Can you guys hear me all right? I apologize. I had to be on my phone tonight. My computer's having some trouble, so I'll just try my best here. And I'll probably hand it off to Amy to give a little bit more input on what we're doing in terms of vision. But I think I talked to you all, and I think it was December or something like that. We talked about the vision and that we are launching it right now. Amy, do you want to go ahead and say some first words about what all is going on in the vision world?
I was just getting the links ready to drop. So I guess like the very first thing, wait, can you not hear me? Because I saw you say, okay, you can hear me, good. Okay. So we have a survey that is available online in multiple languages, and we'd love to have you take it and share it with your communities and really encourage anyone that lives, works, or plays in Beaverton to take that survey. We're also doing specific targeted outreach through a, what's the right word? Consulting group to underrepresented communities, and those focus groups are mostly happening next month, I believe, Nathan, or beginning this month as well. And there is also another opportunity that I'd love to have you guys or other people you know who you'd really like to have their in-depth feedback given to the city to take advantage of, and that is our what's the right word for it? Interviews. We're doing interviews where anybody can sign up for up to a half an hour to just talk about what they think really needs to happen in the city. So that's like, I would say the beginning gist. I don't know if you have more that you'd like to say, Nathan.
Amy nailed it. Those are all the big things that we're doing. I know everybody here is very passionate about Beaverton and the future of the city of Beaverton. So please take a moment, take the survey. That won't take much time and probably will leave you a little unsatisfied because you'll want to say more. So please do sign up for an interview. Those interviews, we're doing 30-minute interviews. Really, they're a loose definition of 30 minutes. So if you've got a lot of thoughts and feelings that you want to get out, we would love to hear your input and hear your voice. Make sure your voice is heard for this visioning process. This vision, we do the vision every 5 years. It gets updated every 5 years, and we come up with a bunch of themes and ideas and projects from the vision. This has ranged from things like the climate action plan was something that the community had called for in the past. Things for more affordable housing and the affordable housing team as a result of the community vision. So the city does its best to be able to listen to residents, figure out what they want, and try to move them into action. And, you know, if you vote, that's one way to get your voice out, but the vision is a really good way to get specific ideas that you have in mind actually down the road to being something that could be done. So with that, I know we don't have a lot of time, but I do want to open things up to questions if anyone has any initial thoughts or questions about the vision.
I took the survey and I felt like it was pretty easy. It was a little basic, but I like the idea of the interview process. So thank you for mentioning that, Amy. That sounds like a really good opportunity to get in depth and maybe talk about some climate stuff on a deeper level too. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that. A big piece, I think, that we've heard from a lot of folks in past visions, the city did a really good job of talking to a lot of different people. I think they bragged about talking to, I think, 5,000 people the first time and like 8,000 people the second time. I think what we really want to make sure this time is that everybody has a chance at having a voice, which is why we are doing the survey, which is great. But beyond that, we're doing intentional focus groups with communities that generally don't get to get involved. And then trying to have more in-person stuff as much as COVID allows, and the interviews as well to be able to kind of hear directly from folks. So really hope you all can get involved and say your piece and get more climate things into the community vision. I think is a real key thing that the city needs to be focusing on. So we want to hear from you all so the city knows that it's a priority.
And I'll just say that on our page is where you can get the link to the survey and also to sign up for the interviews. I don't know if we still have more time, but happy to hear more from you guys. But I didn't say that in the chat, but I did drop the link to the site for the vision and also the direct link to the survey.
Any other thoughts before we jump off? Otherwise, we're happy to yield your time back to you all. All right. Well, we'll be looping back in the future. We're going to be continuing to do this outreach throughout May and June. And then ideally what we're hoping to do is be able to collect a lot of results, figure out what are big projects that people want. We're already hearing a lot of things around climate. And so we know that we're going to be wanting to loop the task force back into figuring out what projects should be priorities. I think the idea is we hear from folks, try to figure out what they want, and then bring it back to the community to actually figure out what we should be doing. So hopefully this will not be the last time that we're talking to you all, and we'll be back with some good results later. So thank you all for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you, Amy and Nathan. What we have next is a presentation on downtown parks and open spaces. So I will let you all take that. Sorry, Sarah and Gary, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay. Great. Good evening. I'm Sarah King. I'm a project manager here at the City of Beaverton, and with me is Gary Keck. Gary, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Gary Keck, and I'm the Design and Development Manager for Twelton Hills Park and Rec, and we're here teamed up together. It's the Park District and City. So.
We are co-managers of a project with a big, it's kind of a mouthful. We're calling the Downtown Parks and Open Space Framework Plan. And I'm going to pull up a presentation here if I can, and we'll get started. Actually, before I pull it up, let me tell you, we're going to kind of break this presentation and interaction with you into two parts. I'm going to talk a little bit about what this project is, why we're doing it, and what the time frame for this planning process will be, and have you have a chance to ask questions about that. Then I'm going to turn it over to Gary, and Gary's going to talk about really the kinds of questions we're asking people, the questions we want to ask you, and that's the time for probably more content related questions and discussion, the kind of thing you're probably excited to jump in and talk about. So with that, let me share my screen. Let me know if you can see it. Great, thank you. Okay, I'm going to make some adjustments to my screen. All right. Downtown Parks and Open Space Framework Plan that I talked about, a joint project between the two agencies. And I'll say, I think this is one of the first planning projects we've actually done together. So this is an exciting learning experience for both agencies. For some of you that have been tracking downtown plans and projects over the past few years, you know that we've done a lot of planning in downtown. Conversely, THPRD has done a lot of its own visioning plan for the district, its district as a whole. We want to build on the previous plans and outreach, and I'm thinking most specifically, well, I think I've got a slide that will get into that, but most specifically the downtown design project, and then current plans like the Loop project, the vision project that Nathan was just talking about, and the downtown equity strategy. So we're talking about a framework plan. What's a framework plan? This is a high-level plan that will describe the types of plans, the types of parks and open spaces that we want to see in downtown. And we'll talk about general areas in downtown for these newer improved parks, open spaces, and natural areas. What we're not going to do is pinpoint specific properties and talk about what a specific plan is going to be there and what's going to be in that specific plan. That will happen at a later date once THPRD acquires property for some of these new spaces. This plan will identify amenities for an attractive, livable, and economically vibrant mixed-use downtown. We've had a lot of changes, a lot of dramatic and exciting changes going on downtown, and we have to make sure that we provide the kind of green space and recreation space that, that folks that live downtown, as well as those that come downtown, will need as the downtown grows. We're also going to try to talk about or ascertain what the look and feel of amenities should be. We want to ensure that all spaces are welcoming, inclusive, and accessible to everyone. And then we will outline a future implementation strategy with immediate and future actions so that THPRD or the city can then start to implement this framework plan. And by the way, I would say the timeline for this framework plan is probably pretty long-term. It's hard to acquire properties. It's hard to develop parks. They take a long time. So, you know, we're looking at this as a 20-year implementation plan. So we'll have some things that will happen right away, but some things that won't happen for quite some time. Okay, what do we mean by downtown? What we have in the orange here, we're really talking about central Beaverton. Everything in that orange line, it's kind of close to our urban renewal, our urban renewal area boundary. But you can see its relationship of downtown to area neighborhoods. So we're going to take into account parks, open spaces, and other amenities just around downtown. For example, how do we hook trails together? How do we ensure pedestrian traffic from outside of that orange space can get into the parks and amenities that we're planning that are within that orange space? Our timeline. We are in the community engagement phase. We've just started that in the last few weeks. You're one of the first groups that we're talking to, and we're actually really excited to be talking to you because, you know, we're going to be like Nathan, we're going to be connecting with a wide variety of people with a lot of different perspectives. And you have a very unique perspective. Not that you're the only ones that are looking at this plan through a sustainability lens, but we know you're going to be looking at this plan through a sustainability lens. And that is one of the reasons we really want to spend some time with you tonight and then come back to you in the future. Just like Nathan said, you'll see us as often as you want to. But we're just starting this phase. We're in the community engagement phase. Over the summer, once we've gotten a bunch of community input, we're going to put together a draft plan and some strategies, and then we'll go back out to the community and review those. Then in the fall, we'll revise the plan and strategy and take it to our respective elected officials. And this spring, summer, fall is kind of nebulous. We could give you a more concrete schedule, but it's frankly still evolving a little bit. So that's why we're really vague here. Let me see, and we'll give you some information at the end of how to connect with us. But I'll stop right there and just ask if there are questions about the process or the reason for the plan. And also, I can't see you while I'm showing this slideshow. So Maggie, maybe you can manage or someone can manage questions and call on people because I can't see if folks have any questions.
Yeah, I will keep an eye out, Sarah. Reggie has his hand up.
Thanks, Maggie. I just find it an interesting photo choice that City Park is listed here. Is there, and when it was redone around the year 2000, previously before that, and probably for 40 years since THPRD was created, it was managed and technically owned by THPRD. And then at some point, the management changed to the city, like when the park was redeveloped. So is that going to remain the same? Or I guess the bigger question is, will any new parks in downtown be like a joint management partnership with the city and THPRD?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's an important question. I don't think we're planning on changing anything about City Park. And I think future facilities, that's a question that we'll work out with THPRD. THPRD is our parks provider, but as you pointed out, there are several facilities that are in downtown that are owned and managed and maintained by the city. So that's part of the, I think, discussion that we'll have before the implementation plan is who's, and it may be a mix. You know, for example, if we do, I'm just throwing this out here, if we do a combination of like open space and stormwater management facility, that may be something that's owned and managed by the city. If it's more recreational in use, it might be THPRD. I think we just haven't gotten to that point yet. And Gary, I don't know if you've got anything to add to that.
Yeah, you know, I agree with you. I think the intent, Reggie, is that, you know, the parks downtown would be operated and generally by the park district. The one that you mentioned, you are correct. It was back in, yeah, I think 99 or 2000 when they redeveloped the park, where they built the library, is when that change happened there at City Park. But there are just a handful of parks that we operate and maintain that are owned by the city. Little People's Park is an example of what Sarah just mentioned, where it's more of a stormwater management park. It's pretty big, but there's that little piece there for the public to gather in if they want. Wonderland Park's another example, but there's very few of those. So I would say moving forward, the intent is, you know, as the park provider, we would be taking on the more recreational or passive type spaces.
And just a comment in the chat that Wonderland Park could use a portable toilet.
All right.
At least in the summer, I live by there. It's, you know, it's maybe a little personal favorite thing of mine, but it's very well used in the summer months.
Yeah, point taken. I'll make a note. I'll see what I can do.
All right, Gary, I can turn this over to you. And since I'm showing the PowerPoint, just tell me when you want me to move on.
Okay, yeah, why don't we go to the next slide then?
You'll have to tell me if you can see that.
Yeah, there's a little delay, but I can see it. So I assume everybody else can.
All right.
So a little more background. The Downtown Parks and Open Space Framework Plan, it's going to build off, you know, the last decade of exciting work that the city's led in downtown planning, but also build off what THPUD has recently put together as well. And the plans that Sarah had mentioned earlier, we've got the downtown equity strategy and the Central Beaverton urban renewal. But the other piece that I don't know if this group may be as familiar with is the THPUD's Vision Action Community Plan. It's a plan that won a national award. We ended up getting, you know, over 12,000 comments, and we touched base with over 10,000 community members in that plan. And an interesting thing in that plan, there are 4 main categories that we heard from the community that we're going to be building off of. And, you know, one was being welcoming and inclusive was important. Play for everyone was the general category as well. Accessibility and safety was an important category. But then the last one that I'll mention was preserving natural spaces came out as an important piece in our plan. So we, like I said, we want to build on all the great work that the city's been doing and bring these things together. And so next slide, we can go to the next slide, Sarah. So to do this is where we thought we might spend some time tonight. We've got four basic questions that we're going to be asking the community as we go through this community engagement process that Sarah had mentioned. And these are trying to hone in more on downtown and what the public wants to see. So you can see the first question there is, what types of parks and open spaces, natural areas would you like to see in downtown? And that's trying to get to, you know, do you want to see neighborhood parks downtown, open spaces, what type, natural areas? What I can say is that, you know, the downtown's an important piece for the park district. And in 2019, we updated our parks functional plan, and we actually added 2 more categories that we're going to be bringing up. Urban plazas was added to our parks functional plan, as well as pocket parks. And both those were added because we know downtown there's not large acreage available. And those are 2 categories that we did not have in our plan previously. We were always looking for a neighborhood park, which in our mind was, you know, 2 acres or more on average. So that's one thing we'll be asking. The second question is, what types of activities would you like to do in these spaces? And again, trying to hone down on how are people using downtown? How do they want to use downtown? then the third, do you have ideas of the design, look, and feel of these spaces? So again, trying to get input from the community and what do they want these spaces to look like? We're not actually going to go design spaces like Sarah said. We need to stay at the high level, but we can include in this plan looks and feels of what the spaces should entail. And then the fourth question is, what ideas do you have to make these spaces more welcoming and inclusive to everyone? So those, we were hoping we might be able to get some feedback from this group. As Sarah mentioned, you're one of the first groups we've reached out to. So we're in the very early stages. We did hit the farmers market a couple of weeks ago. We hit the weather great. It was awesome. We got a lot of input there. And then we also hit the BG food court a couple of weeks ago as well at a lunchtime. So we've got a long community engagement process planned out. I think, Sarah, we're looking at like 35 different venues that we're going to be hitting with these.
Yeah, we have
about
something like that. If we do all of those, we'll have to see.
So we're looking at all the events that the Park District and the city already have planned for the spring and summer, and we're going to try to tag on to there. We've been working with Nathan, who you just spoke to, trying to team up where we can with the visioning process as well. So I wonder if we could maybe we just go down each question real quick, if everybody's up for that, and any feedback. So, and I can't see everybody either, so I got to scroll through to see who's got a hand up.
Gary, I just had a quick question. Could you define like a pocket park? I have an idea of what I think it is, of course.
Yeah.
I don't know sure what you're thinking it is.
Yeah. So, we don't have a lot of pocket parks currently built. I'll say right now, South Cooper Mountain area, we're getting a lot of pocket parks. You can imagine the developers are coming in and they're trying to maximize their sites, but they have some requirements for parks and open spaces. And when they maximize their site, we end up with a lot of smaller pieces, I'd say. So in my mind, Katie, a pocket park is about a half acre is what you're looking at. So pretty small. A typical neighborhood park is around 2 acres, which is about the size of a soccer field, like any of our synthetic turf fields you see in our community. Those are about 2 acres. So that's about the size of a neighborhood park. And then the urban plazas can be fairly small. We got our first one at the Cedar Grove plaza up there, Cedar Grove Apartments, the affordable housing one that was just built off Cornell and Murray. The Park District has a plaza on the north side of that development, and it's about 2,000 square feet. And it's got a nice seat wall, nice places to sit, and a little interactive splash pad, little fountain that goes through it. So we've updated our functional plan to count all these spaces from 2,000 square feet up to, the big open spaces that we have as well. So any other thoughts from the group on what types of parks they want to see downtown?
There was before we go on to that question, Gary, there was a question about plans for multilingual surveys and questioners at events in diverse communities.
Yeah, it's a great question. And we are working with the city and the Park District's community engagement staff, and we intend to interpret everything or transcribe everything into Spanish for sure. And we have had interpreters at the last 2 events. So yes, we are working on that. So let's see, Maggie, do you want to call them out, or do you want?
Yeah, no, I 2 hands went up simultaneously. So I'm just saying Jennifer and then Reggie.
I was going to say I really like the idea of the pocket parks in the urban plazas, especially as we start doing infill, having those green spaces available to people who live in condos and apartments and really tight spaces. Just having that little bit of room to get out, walk half a block and have some room to breathe, I think would be really useful.
Yep.
So a big issue that needs to be addressed is central Beaverton's urban heat island effect, and that's only going to increase with climate disruption and more development. So it's absolutely critical that any new parks have significant tree canopy, whether that's preserved or planted out, reserving enough space above and below ground for those large trees. Small trees are not going to cut it because they simply don't provide the necessary benefits, the level of benefits that we need to effectively address the problems. I'd also love to see creeks daylit, and then streamside corridors expanded and augmented. Of course, Beaverton used to be a giant wetland with beaver dams and everything similar to kind of what Greenway Park looks like now. And it's really important that we utilize those natural systems to our advantage, because the wetlands and creeks are critical green infrastructure, and Beaverton, downtown Beaverton is at a topographical low. So actually in addressing like potential flooding risks that are talked about in the climate action plan, as well as addressing the heat island effect, it's critical that we integrate large maturing trees into new parks and also expand streams and wetlands. With the Patricia Research Center for the Arts, the city actually cut into the adjacent wetland a bit and removed a lot of the native trees that had been planted over the last 10 years associated with the previous parking lot there. Additionally, with Cedar Hills Park, the Park District removed a lot of mature trees in the grove to create an athletic field and driveway, and I don't think enough trees were planted to replace that, especially to kind of repair the holes in the grove and make the existing remaining grove sturdier.
Okay.
Jennifer, you still have your hand up. Did you want to ask another question? Okay, no.
All right. Well, maybe we can move to the next one real quick. What types of activities would you all like to see in the spaces downtown? Any ideas? Or maybe how do you use the space now? Or
Reggie?
I'm looking at, like the park blocks in downtown Portland as a really positive example of what we could be going towards. So just passive recreation, places to sit are really important. I also want to draw attention to the need for community garden spaces and garden plots in downtown Beaverton. Right now, I'm really frustrated with how the city of Beaverton is tentatively planning to destroy the existing community gardens at the community center at 5th and Hall, and there aren't really clear plans as to how that would be replaced. The land to make up for that has to come from somewhere. So instead of destroying or redeveloping our existing community gardens, I think we need to preserve those and then plan for additional ones. We can't accept that because community gardens are maybe not like getting the maximum financial value out of the site as land value increases. That shouldn't be a reason to get rid of them and replace them with, large buildings.
Reggie, can I follow up on your question about the park blocks? The park, you talked about passive open space. The park blocks in downtown Portland also have a lot of activities in them. There are playgrounds, there's bocce courts, there's, well, depending on whether you call Director's Park part of the park block series or not, there's a large plaza at the south end where the farmers market is held. So to me, when I think about the park blocks, I think about passive park blocks, but I also think there are active park blocks. So can you say a little bit more about your vision and what it might include?
Well, yeah, that's a good point. I know the Saturday market happens there for PSU and other community events. So really just creating it as a community gathering space and a friendly space, and in particular, a refuge from the harsh physical, gray elements of a downtown area.
Thanks, that's helpful.
I see Katie and Jennifer's hands up, but we also had some comments in the chat I just wanted to call out. We had someone say that they also would like to encourage rivers and creeks downtown being restored, that would create possibly opportunities for river creek vistas for people who are visiting as a scenic thing. And Rebecca, who doesn't have a microphone, greenway through and across the highways cutting through downtown would be tremendous. The greenway that allows for travel through and across 99 and Tigard is wonderful. If there was a possibility of an elevated walkway connection maintained by THPRD for long distance exercise to connect existing bike paths and walkways, that would allow for heightened accessibility for downtown residents to regional pathways. Mm-hmm. And a seconding of comments about community gardens. And another comment about community gardens. So it sounds like people are into community gardens, and also agreement with large trees in parks, as well as waterway restoration. And I think I saw Katie's hand go up first, and then Jennifer.
I just have a comment about one type of space that it would be nice to have. Mm-hmm. And maybe this is a little too specific, but it would be nice to continue the idea of, the walkable downtown, as far as having more green space available with like more picnic tables. I'm thinking kind of like the First Street, dining area, but in a green space. I know you can walk to City Park and stuff, that's not that far, but I really like how that downtown area has become a little bit more of a gathering place, but it'd be nice to continue that to be more incorporated into more green spaces as well. I think that's what I would use it for, at least.
All right, thank you.
I think having a space, oh, I'm so sorry, Jennifer.
No, go ahead, Rhaven.
I think having a space, something you don't see too often anymore is like a stage for live music and things. I think that's really fun, especially in the warmer months. And as we know, music brings people together and is, kind of a natural therapy, so to speak. So I think maybe seeing, even just a small stage somewhere to encourage live music would be awesome.
All right.
Can I ask a little follow-up on that? This is the beauty of having some adequate time on the agenda, which we appreciate. So there's a couple elements of that. One is stage for music. So that can be done either in a hardscape situation. I think of something like, you could have, it can either happen in a grassy area or in a really hardscape area, almost like I think of Pioneer Place downtown. I'm trying to think, I don't think there's any bandshell areas in the Lake Oswego, the park in downtown Lake Oswego. So is music, is it like, am I hearing a particular hardscape, softscape, or am I hearing a large space for gathering, or am I hearing a large space for gathering with a stage? And pardon me for digging in, but this is where it's most useful to really kind of dig into this stuff.
Yeah, that's great. My vision is more like a space for gathering with a stage.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. So not so much like Pioneer, more green space with, a stage off to the side or in the middle.
Thank you.
Jennifer, do you want to go?
Sure. I was going to second the thought about having spaces to eat. Being downtown, there's a lot of businesses and employees who might enjoy going out for lunch break underneath a shady tree. Another thing that I really liked, and you had shown this in your slide, was the talking walls I live near the Talking Walls at Greenway Park, and those, I really enjoy looking at those. And so having Talking Walls art, info signs with just that, bringing that history and community awareness to the general public, I think would be really good to just help knit the community together.
A couple more hands went up, but also some comments in the chat. It looked like there was a seconding of a live stage area and a question about, could the city PHPRD buy the amphitheater at Beaverton Christian Church?
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that one. But we can bring it to the table for sure, Reggie.
So I saw Lauren's hand go up, and then Rheanna.
Yeah, I would just echo everything that's been said. I was also going to bring up live music and performances, and also just as a parent with kids, opportunities to play that do not diminish the green space. So I really want to get away from giving up the trees for kind of, cement splash pads or play structures, and really, like, if there are climbing friendly trees that can support kids playing with them, or stumps that kids can just jump on and off of, I think we forget that we can just play with the simplicity of nature. And I'd really like to lean more in that direction. And then same with the musical stage, if we can do that in a way where we still feel like we're surrounded in greenery and not surrounded in bricks and cement, that would be great.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to add, if the space is such that there's only room for like pocket parks and different things like that, I think it's helpful to have walkability between them as much as possible, so that somebody can go and explore all of the parks, or as much as possible, while they're also enjoying downtown, while still being mindful though of not taking away any like trees or into like natural spots, or making sure that animals can still cross wherever. Like, I don't want to cut into anything to do that. I want, like, if there's just the room to have a park and then go through downtown a little bit to the next park, I think having those walkways is beneficial.
Yep, that's a good point. So how about, could we switch real quick to look and feel? Anybody have thoughts on what they might look and feel? I mean, I'm hearing a few things. I've heard kind of like a nature play and tree canopies and daylighting creeks. So I get the feeling more of the natural look and feel is what one thing that I'm hearing, but we confirm that from the group.
Reggie?
Thanks, Maggie. I just want to elaborate on the need for large maturing trees in our parks. With pocket parks, that offers the city and THPRD a lot more flexibility to buy more smaller parcels or portions of existing parcels. And I mention this because most of Beaverton, downtown Beaverton's significant trees, and not talking about the city definition of a significant tree, but trees that are rather large or mature, have been around for many, many decades, whether they're native or non-native and planted. Most of these are under imminent threat. I'm talking about the next 10, 20 years. So it's really important that we protect what's left. And I think it would be a great opportunity to integrate existing groves of trees that might span multiple lots into a future park, or at least a conservation easement. And that, just because having trees there doesn't mean that it precludes other uses, but the look of these new parks really should integrate and provide opportunities for protection of large mature trees. Some of the examples of trees that are under threat are like at the corner, southeast corner of Milliken and Hawken, there are some huge ponderosa pines and Oregon white oaks. Currently, these are all owned privately, and the city doesn't have protections in place that will ensure that the benefits are able to reach the new populations as development occurs and the climate crisis exacerbates, where those benefits of the mature trees are going to be that much more important. And we don't have decades to wait for small trees to grow up and provide those benefits.
Yeah, Reggie, I agree with you. Planting trees downtown, it can be challenging, right? We did a tour of downtown recently with our consultants and several staff from both agencies, and we had the city's arborist there, and he was telling us some of the challenges with the trees downtown, and making sure that if we do plan to plant stuff in the future, that we leave enough space for the roots to grow and not impact sidewalks and whatnot, which we see a lot of downtown Beaverton right now, right? We have the old tree wells that have been planted.
Well, actually, the tree wells that are there are way too small. They don't provide nearly the necessary amount of rooting volume and soil volume for the trees. So many of the trees that were planted 20, 30 years ago in downtown along the streets in those concrete wells are very stunted and are not providing anywhere near the amount of benefits that they should be providing to address effectively the issues that we're seeing more and more. So this not necessarily has to do with parks, more street tree strategy, but the amount of soil volume for each tree needs to be increased, and we shouldn't have so much concrete in our planting strips and along sidewalks and whatnot. At least make it impermeable and reserve space below ground for those tree roots. But I guess to address something else that you were saying, planting is not the full solution. We need to really seriously talk about and integrate preservation strategies. We must protect what's left because we can't afford to not have any significant large trees in the future, or very few. So I think the city and THPRD coming together, this is an invaluable opportunity to protect what's left.
And I see Lauren's hand up. Lauren, I don't know if you had another question that you wanted to ask.
Oh, no, I think I just didn't lower it.
And Maggie, I don't know what our timeline is for the agenda item. We come up to the end, or can we go over the last question?
I am trying to do way too many things on one screen. Can we get a time check, Kevin?
Yeah,
10 minutes left.
Yeah, you got 10 minutes.
Okay, then why don't we move to the fourth question, and if the group has any ideas on how to help to make these spaces more welcoming and inclusive to everyone.
Katie's hand went up. Katie?
Yes, I definitely do as a parent. So I will say that. My kids are fairly younger, but many of the downtown areas feel dangerous, I should say, when we're close to those streets downtown. Even the First Street dining area feels a little too close to streets. So one thing that would make it more welcoming, I don't know how this integrates with the overall feel or design, but maybe some areas where there's like a fence between these very busy streets and the parks, because downtown, even as my kids get a little bit older, it still feels like a place that I don't think of going to take them, because I do feel nervous being around those very, very busy streets with no barricades at all whatsoever between those. But another thing I know I mentioned before, obviously, But I think a big part of accessibility can be having restrooms and areas that are fully accessible to everyone. That does make, you know, parks that don't have bathrooms are inaccessible to a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. And I know there's concerns with that, and there's costs with that and stuff too, but that would be my idea for how that would feel more welcoming and inclusive.
Okay, great, thank you.
And then I saw Stephen's hand and then Reggie.
Hello. So some thoughts that I would have, just being friends and knowing a lot of people with disabilities who struggle with walking, even short distances, that it'd be really nice to make sure that these areas, they are generally, with the way downtown is, they are close to bus lines, but maintaining that kind of accessibility, and also making sure that, you know, with the introduction of bathrooms and like the way the parks are structured, that there's not too much of like large gaps that people need to overcome. Like, what am I thinking of? Like kind of like sometimes places will have like larger raised curbs or things like that. And that can be really difficult for people who struggle to walk and take those bigger steps, and especially older people too as well. So just, you know, keeping those in mind about safety things regarding that. And yeah, those were just some thoughts that I had.
Yeah, those are great thoughts. And that's something we do on a regular basis, trying to comply with the ADA type code compliances with slopes and widths of trails and doorways and whatnot. So that's a good point. Thank
you. Thanks, Gary and Stephen. One thing that we really need to consider is with the increasing urban heat island effect and variable weather from the climate crisis, we need to consider how our existing spaces are becoming potentially less accessible to our most vulnerable populations, such as people who are more vulnerable to heat-related health issues. So, you know, one example is the city of Beaverton just put in the Unity Plaza, but at our NAC meeting, the designers didn't have like trees next to the bus stop. So anybody who was sitting at the bus stop was going to be blasted with full sun in the, you know, summer months. So shade, you know, it really is something that's key to making the spaces welcoming and inclusive, because it invites people to use them. We might have amenities available at parks, but without shade and environmental protection, they're not able to be used by all, or they're used by people for less amount of time. An example of this is the dog run at Schiffler Park, where I've heard a lot of feedback from Central Beaverton neighbors that there's not enough shade at the dog run. In fact, there is no shade. So during the summer months, they say that they can only be there for 5 minutes or so at a time before they have to leave because of being completely exposed to the elements. So this is going to get worse over time. So it's really important that we provide significant shade providing trees for these plazas and reserve space above and below ground for tree roots and other natural features, so that these trees can actually fulfill their maximum potential and provide all the benefits that we need.
That's great input. Thank you, Reggie.
And Rhaven had her hand up.
Thank you. And just to kind of piggyback off of what Stephen was saying, as far as people with disabilities go, I think I'm seeing a lot more in some parks around Portland and things, you know, play structures and swings that, you know, take into account kids with disabilities. So I think, you know, once again, kind of with the ADA, that's a really important thing, as well as, you know, kids who are maybe neurodiverse and aren't as quick to kind of run in and start playing as some other kids, and might be a little more shy and want to maybe observe a bit before deciding to come in and play. I know some parks are putting in little nook areas where kids can almost kind of stand and just observe, you know, before they're kind of comfortable to actually start playing. So some things to think about as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
It looks like Lauren.
Yeah, maybe I'm crossing over to community partnering and engagement, but I think, you know, we talked about musical performances just in terms of who the city is partnering with. So those populations that have been historically excluded in the past can have a part in hosting culturally specific events in these parks and spaces, so that from cultural and racial equity standpoints, everybody feels like this park is for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's important, Lauren. Thank you for bringing it up. And that is one of the values from our board, is being providing more equity opportunities. And we've been doing a lot of community engagement events that are oriented around different types of holidays from different cultures and whatnot. So it's something that we've been building on for the last couple of years. And I think, don't quote me, but I think concerts in the park might be coming back. You know, with COVID, we took a little bit of a break there for a couple of years, but close to downtown, you know, Schiffler Park is where we used to do the mayor's picnic historically, if you recall. We'd have theater or concerts there. When we redeveloped that park, we designed it so that we have the power and whatnot we need for a stage. There's no stage there year round, but there's a place to put a stage. And that big lawn area there on the east side was designed just for community gathering spaces like what you're talking about. And then also, Greenway Park was a park that we had been putting concerts in the park in the past as well, if you recall. It's been a few years, but they're coming back, which is exciting. Slowly coming back to, I guess, a new normal. Well, any other thoughts? I sure appreciate everybody's input. I got a lot of notes here. This is great.
Yeah, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for, I think we had some extra time, more time than we were originally allotted on the agenda, and we really appreciate it. I mean, you've got a busy agenda tonight, so thanks for giving us your full attention for so long.
So to close up just real quick, we are going to have a survey go out, similar to what Nathan had mentioned. He's got a survey coming out, but if you check our webpage, the city's got a webpage up for this project. We'll have a survey that will go out with basically the questions you just answered, really. But if you want to participate, feel free to jump on and put your thoughts there if you have any other ideas. And then we will have an open house later in the summer. We don't know if it'll be virtual or in person yet. Time will tell. So there's other opportunities to stay involved. So just take a look at the website and you'll see those. So, or email myself or Sarah even. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah and Gary. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, we'll come back if you want us to, and give you some of the results of some of our engagement. And when we've got maybe a draft plan to share, we'll come back.
That sounds good.
Yeah, thank you.
So rolling right along in the agenda, we have another presentation on the Year of Trees initiative from the Central Beaverton NAC sustainability team. So I am going to go ahead and hand it off to them to give us their presentation.
Thanks, Maggie. Hey, everybody. My name is Kevin. I'm a member of the Central Beaverton Neighborhood Association Committee. I am not actually on our sustainability team, but a couple of our core team members are pregnant or recently had a kid or busy, so I'm here filling in for them. I think this is a really exciting proposal and idea that they've been working through, and I'm really excited to share it with you. We've talked with the Highland NAC about it, gotten really great support from them as well, and the Neighbors Southwest NAC. So I'm going to share my screen in just a moment, but as I work through this presentation, I want you all to be thinking about like pieces of feedback or guidance or ideas you all might have for this project, because it's very ambitious. And we're just trying to build support for it, because like, as you all are very passionate about. Like this is a key key tool in addressing climate change at a local level. So I'm going to share my screen and let's walk through this together. All right. View slideshow. All right. So again, we're calling this the Year of Trees. And the reason why we are bringing this up is because with the Central Beaverton Neighborhood Association Committee, we often review development applications and proposals and talk with developers as they're building new stuff in our neighborhood. And we welcome that. Like we want that growth, but it's often frustrated us as a team that we are consistently losing our tree canopy. And so we were talking like, how do we go on the offensive rather than just trying to protect? How can we actually be planting more and more? And so that's where this Year of Trees idea came in, where we want to challenge the whole city to plant 10,000 trees, which is 1 tree for every 10 residents. This would be a project that's done via partnership with other community organizations and just individual community members. So each tree that's planted on public or private grounds could count toward this 10,000 goal, but we especially want to focus on areas that are more susceptible to extreme heat. You all were just talking about downtown. That is a great example of areas that are lacking of an area that's lacking in trees. We can measure this success by creating a heat map of where all the trees were created and how many trees were planted or how many volunteers were involved or how much shade was provided. There are a lot of different measurables that we can use to actually see if we're doing well. So where are we planting trees? Again, anywhere in the city. We want this to be able to improve our public spaces and provide a low cost or cost effective tree coverage to the city, partnering with homeowners and residents, partnering with community volunteers to support people who might want a tree but might not have the ability to plant them. So really coming at this from looking at public space and private property, because we need more tree coverage. So what kinds of trees were planted? Are we wanting to plant? Like we want to plant some native trees, resilient trees that can withstand some of the extreme heat we've been getting. But we would want to do some appropriate outreach and education about that. Because there are people like me who love trees, but we don't know the technical standards of like what makes a good tree for this area of Oregon. And so a lot of this will rely on partnerships that are mentioned here at the bottom of the slide, but also here on this slide. Because we know that 10,000 trees is very ambitious, especially for a neighborhood association committee that doesn't have a huge number of volunteers. But when we partner with other organizations like are listed here, that capacity for change actually dramatically increases. And so one piece of feedback that I want from you all in a minute is thinking through other partners that we should be talking with, who might be able to work with us on this, or who might have good expertise, or who might have done something similar before. Like we're just trying to learn and trying to see how feasible this is. So why is this the right focus? You all don't need to be told a lot of this. Like climate change is very real. Beaverton is a tree city, USA, but we've been losing a lot of that tree canopy. So we want to own that name and become a model that other communities can follow. It aligns with the community vision. For all of the points mentioned here, like people envision the future of Beaverton. Most of us envision a place that's green, it's comfortable to relax and hang out and play. And we want to meet that community vision that we've put forth and that we're creating again. The climate plan, there are several pieces here that this connects with too. Heat island effects, stormwater mitigation, mental and physical health of people here in the city. Like there are a lot of pieces of our climate plan and our community vision that this touches on. And this could even include like talking about the backyard habitat program or street trees, like all of it could be included here. All right, so how do we engage the community? So I did mention an education campaign, like how do we plant trees? Where do we plant trees? What kinds of trees? The Central Beaverton NAC and the Highland NAC just did a tree planting event in Evelyn Schiffler Park maybe 3 months ago. And that was a great opportunity for us to show neighbors and high school students and people who genuinely care how they can plant a tree that'll be nice now, but it'll grow to even be nicer and healthier in the future. All right, so measurables of success. I mentioned some of these before, so I won't spend a ton of time on it, but just how many trees are planted, how many volunteers are involved, where are the trees planted, are there areas that are having fewer trees planted that might need more focus in the future? Like there are some clear metrics that we can use to make sure we're doing a good job. And then I want to finish here because this is what I want to come back to. We've talked with several neighborhood groups. We're going to be talking with some of these other community organizations. But what I would love from you all here is your feedback, your initial thoughts or reactions, your suggestions for improvement, your thoughts on if this is even possible, or if our goal is solid, if we need to refine anything. But ultimately, we want to keep moving this forward as a neighborhood because we are frustrated that we've lost so much of our tree canopy. And then we want to be able to share it with City Council. I know the city's had a very tight budget and it's getting even tighter due to revenue shortfalls. But trees are a very cost-effective way to promote a fiscally sustainable city in the future too. So we want to be able to present this to City Council so that they can support it. We'd love y'all's partnership in that if we keep moving forward. And we'd love for you all to feel like co-owners in this so that we are all advocating and pushing in the same direction to make to make a city that's got some better tree coverage. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I want to be able to see you all some more and hear any comments or questions you all have. Anybody have any first thoughts they want to jump in with? Yeah, is it Rheanna? Is that how you say it?
It's Rheanna, but I answered it either. Thank you for presenting this. I love the idea and love like the fact that the metric piece of like being able to see the impact at the end. I think you get really creative with that. So I don't know, I'm personally excited about that piece. Obviously the trees is the biggest point. I was curious as far as like the native piece goes, do you already have plans for like in what ways you guys will encourage natives over a non-native alternative?
No, we don't.
Okay.
But we would love to have a plan.
Okay. I don't have anything right now, but I would love, 100% native would be perfect, but yeah, as much as we can figure that out, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you. I'm seeing some comments come in the chat, but we'll go to Maggie first.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I think I just had more of a general question about how you see the Climate Action Task Force best supporting. Aside from us giving you our feedback right now, do you see any kind of like logistical pieces that we could help with on this project?
Yeah, potentially. It's hard to say right now. I think with the Climate Action Task Force, kind of you all learning your role and how you best support the city, I think there's a lot of flexibility here for the types of involvement you all might want to have. Of course, volunteering to help plant or giving us guidance and expertise on some education campaigns we might be putting together, like all of that's great, but there might be something that you all see as an opportunity to get involved with, a way to support that I haven't seen and that our team hasn't seen, and we would welcome all of that. And Jennifer?
Yes, I wanted to, was my kind of question, like Rheanna, was how we were going to encourage the proper trees to be planted. I know a few of us on here have grumbled about the unupdated list of street trees that the city encourages people to plant. Unfortunately, I have 3 invasive species trees that are quite large in my parking strip. So I will have to cut down 3 rather large trees that are providing a lot of shade in order to get my platinum certification for backyard habitat. So I know that's not your problem or something that can be addressed in this project, but that is a big concern of mine of how we would educate people on the proper trees to plant. And I did have a partner recommendation for you. I spoke back in January to Dean Moberg with the Tualatin Water and Soil Conservation District. He has been wanting to put together some sort of a kind of a project to be able to help with planting urban trees. And he had mentioned that he might have some funding to be able to help with that too. So
yeah, okay, that would be awesome. You said that was the
Tualatin Water, Soil, and Conservation District.
Cool. Okay, great. Thank you. And to your comment about the street tree list, you know, I think there are a lot of side benefits that could come out of a result of this advocacy. The city had a tree code audit done of our tree code pretty recently, but there's no actual funding or staff capacity right now to make those changes. You all might have had a presentation on that recently too. But maybe like as we're pushing for these 10,000 trees to be planted, like that provides more incentive encouragement for the city to update its codes and or even very simply just create a better street tree list. It could all be connected. All right, Reggie.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin. Really excited about this idea, and I hope we can support it to the fullest extent. I think a lot of these issues would be addressed by expanding the current city partnership with the Friends of Trees organization. I've been a volunteer with them for nearly 15 years, and I've also just been a seasonal employee for them. They have all the capacity to scale up what tree planting is already happening. We just need to fund them as a city. So we need to be creative with our funding sources to expand this partnership. I don't think that the lack of money is a big enough potential issue to prevent this from happening. There are always ways to reconfigure the budget to feed into this important project and the need to plant trees and do more than what we're already doing. Additionally, you know, there are numerous studies that show that the amount that you invest in trees returns far more than what was originally put in, often doubling the investment over time. So it's really important that we do focus a lot on tree planting. And Friends of Trees can really do this. They have a lot of support for homeowners who can work with them to choose the right tree for the right place, updating Beaverton's street tree list to make it more drought tolerant, diverse, removing problematic species is still very much important. And I don't see that happening. I don't see the urgency from the city on making that happen. I believe that the ball is in community development department on that. But there's a lot that needs to change about the street tree list. But Friends of Trees is able to connect residents to wholesale nurseries, and that really expands the amount of trees that are accessible. I know that another factor with Beaverton's list right now is that it has many varieties that are not commonly available at local nurseries. And I know this because I've done a lot of sourcing for neighborhood events, and it's really frustrating when we technically aren't allowed to plant certain species that other cities have no trouble allowing. And those other cities like Portland have actually done a lot of research and regularly update the street tree lists. So we really need to look to what other cities in the region are doing, not just the larger ones like Portland and Vancouver, which are doing a great job overall, but even like Oregon City and Wilsonville, where Friends of Trees has been growing their partnerships over the last years, and that's really starting to pay off.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Reggie. All right, I see some comments about people sharing different partners. Oregon Community Trees, Arbor Day Foundation, thank you. Yeah, does anybody who wrote a comment in chat want to share it verbally? Oh, Kevin.
I'll just share something that I said. I believe the street tree list has been recently updated, just perhaps not posted yet. So I'm going to find out about that and get back to you all.
That would be great. Yeah, thank you all for your comments on this. I think as a neighborhood, what we want to do is we want to make this very easy for the city to say yes to. And so we're going to be putting in a lot of the work in advance because we know city staff have a lot on their plates. And so if we can present a project that's pretty well formulated and has pretty good process put forward to it, it could be great if city council and the manager and staff are just able to say, yes, like we actually can do this. So you all supporting that is pretty great. All right, I think that's it. I'm going to review some of the comments in the chat before I leave, but yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Kevin. So keeping with the tree theme, I'm going to hand this over to Reggie for tree equity score piece. Go ahead, Reggie.
Thanks. Let me just take a couple seconds while I start sharing my screen. I want to make sure that I do it properly. Okay. Can everyone see the Tree Equity Score website?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So yeah, this is a resource that was recently released by the American Forests nonprofit. It's like a national nonprofit based out of DC. But basically this creates a really accessible tool to view tree canopy in a lens of equity. And City of Beaverton really is focusing on equity more these days. So kind of marrying the two concepts, tree canopy coverage and equity really is in line with addressing many issues at once that the city has identified as being a priority. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. There are a lot of details that went into this, but I won't talk about the methodology as much, but I would encourage you to check that out. There's also an FAQ here. So treeequityscore.org is the URL to save, and you can explore this more on your own time. But here's basically the gist of it. So you've got a range from 30 to 100, and 100 means that in that census block, which is how this map is split up, tree canopy is equitably distributed on a city level or within the neighborhood. So we have a lot of different stories going on here in Beaverton. We have roughly the city boundaries, but not exactly, so just keep that in mind. But here, looking at the region as a whole, you can see that downtown Beaverton is the west side capital, essentially, of tree inequity. And I think that's only being made worse currently. I'm seeing, a lot of new developments with small maturing trees for street trees, a lot of pavement, a lot of concrete, and especially the tree wells that are being installed are just basically concrete holes in the ground where the trees are going to have trouble growing to their full maturity. So the attention here really is drawn to central Beaverton. Now we do have a lot of tree canopy around the rest of the city, such as Southwest Beaverton, where tree equity score is 98. So when we're looking at how this could be applied, this doesn't mean that tree planting shouldn't happen here. It's just that resources should be focused to more of these orange areas to help reduce those gaps and inequities. So we compare that to, well, this isn't a great example, but we do have residents who live in this little area, even though it's largely industrial, but tree equity score of 32 is super bad. So there's a lot of change that needs to happen here to address these inequities. I think this map is a really useful tool for city leaders to reference and guide themselves on creating policies that reduce the inequities of tree canopy. while increasing tree canopy across the city. And then I just want to talk about briefly the priority index here. So this is an index, so it means it combines a lot of different factors to create this final product, the number here, which you can compare to other census blocks. So we have people of color. Historically, people of color have been disenfranchised out of living in tree-rich neighborhoods. With Beaverton, I think because Beaverton is developed so much later, that isn't necessarily as much of an issue here, but in Portland it really is. And you can really tell based on like the history of redlining and how that intersects with tree canopy across neighborhoods. We also have unemployment as a factor. The health index, I'm not entirely sure what health index is. So you'd want to read more about that in the methodology to see what exactly that means. This is like the some sort of average daytime temperature in the summertime, percent people in poverty, seniors, and children. So the higher these numbers are in this kind of seven-sided shape, the less, I guess, and also considering the canopy cover, that's another key piece of the puzzle. You know, current canopy here is 7%, and you want a canopy cover of 40%, which is a standard for forested cities or cities in forested states. So I think the biggest factor here is the existing tree canopy. It's very low, but when you combine these other factors like how hot it gets, the number of people in poverty, and then the general health conditions for people living there, that really reveals how lack of tree canopy is creating these or associated with these undesirable outcomes and lower community vitality overall. So I wanted to open up the floor if we have any time left to some questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. And just feel free to unmute yourself and say anything, just because I don't want to have to deal with going between screens.
Hey, Reggie.
Yeah.
This is Kevin.
Hey.
I hope you don't mind me chiming in real quick. This is really cool. I want to put a link in the chat to a similar map that I found recently about that shows urban heat islands mapped out. And it's very similar, very related to this. So I think this is a really cool tool.
Thank you. Yeah, please do post it. Yeah, this is a great tool. I've already used it to kind of look at where to focus tree plantings in the Highland neighborhood here. We've done a lot of work in this like north portion where significant disparity between the south and north as far as tree canopy exists. And there's also these associated factors like income, percent people of color, seniors, and whatnot. So we should still be planting trees around the city, because one key thing is that this map does not measure the rate of change of the canopy equity score or canopy composition percentage. So it's likely, based on regional trends, that all of these equity scores are decreasing. Now that doesn't mean that we should be taking resources away from the more orange areas, but we definitely need to focus more effort on addressing tree canopy disparities in these lower equity score areas. So I hope that the city will take this data into account and that we can use it as an accessible way to, you know, absorb data and information on the social and, you know, socioeconomic factors that influence or are associated with tree planting and canopy. So that was our first Climate 101. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. And I hope we can continue these wonderful conversations.
Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Sorry, Kevin, do you mind leading us into the next piece?
Sure thing. We are wildly ahead of schedule, which is a new thing for this group. So I was just doing some chatting with Syed, and we were thinking about maybe just kind of opening it up to anything that was discussed so far tonight or earlier in the meeting. We talked about, as you all were coming in, we were talking about the expanded recycling concept with the council liaison and whatnot. So we can just open up the floor to any comments or yeah, anything anyone would like to elaborate on or throw out there for next month. Jennifer, I see a hand.
I had thought right at the end of the Parks and Open Spaces presentation that we should also not just focus on trees, because those are also important, but pollinator-friendly patches as well. I have a acquaintance who is a beekeeper in Hillsborough, and she has a thing about having pollinator corridors where they can jump from park to park throughout the city, which would also benefit community gardens and things as well.
Very cool. Reggie.
I really appreciate your point on that, Jennifer. I think the city should relook at its city codes to support kind of, well, so-called meadowscaping, basically landscaping a planting strip or a front yard with native plants or pollinator-friendly plants, and allowing them to become larger than a foot and not considering them weeds. I will admit I got dinged recently by a code compliance officer for my meadowscape in the planting strip, and I'm trying to create a wildlife corridor and viable habitat, but the city, should definitely move beyond looking at all tall vegetation as weeds and do more to support the cultivation of those corridors.
Any other comments? Anybody else want to jump in? Maggie, Syed, Fredy, anyone?
I was just giving it a minute to see if anyone had any other thoughts about so much that we have heard tonight, which was really valuable. Thank you so much for your engagement and thoughtful feedback and questions. I think it's really helpful to see the value that we can collectively bring to these kind of conversations, and that's really where we want to be. I think just a little bit of heads up, like we have been as the leadership trying to be a little bit more diligent about meeting with some of the people presenting ahead of time, giving them a little bit more perspective on what we are anticipating and how it would resonate and how best we can, again, more effectively and efficiently use this time. So thank you again for showing up and asking those questions. Leah?
So with the expanded recycling proposal that the counselor sent to us, I found it a little odd about the increased use of plastic bags to sort the recyclables. I don't know if other people caught that. So you would get a larger container and then you have designated plastic bags to sort these, like, I think 4 or 5 different recyclable materials. So just the increased use of plastic bags for a recycling program didn't quite sit well with me.
I think that's how Ridwell does it too. right? Like they have plastic bags for
These
their
are cloth.
Well,
No?
but they have a plastic bag for their clamshells, I know.
Okay.
But I think maybe they do have other cloth ones too. And I'm not justifying it. I just say I've seen that before, which is a bummer.
Go ahead, Reggie, please.
Thanks, Syed. Just thinking about like the need for increased outreach around environmental topics, I think about like my experience as an AmeriCorps volunteer in the region, and I think it would be really good if the city created like a small cohort of AmeriCorps volunteers that, you know, just is like a 10.5-month position and you have new people coming in all the time. But here you'd really have them focusing on connecting the city programs to residents on a more grassroots level than what we're able to do right now. I just think that would be a huge benefit to the city. And there's like the Confluence Environmental Center in Portland that the city could partner with to create these positions. But I would love to see more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think awareness and education is a part of even within this, right? Like, so pretty much there's an opportunity that all of these create in terms of expanding that level of detail that people should be aware of or equipped with. I keep seeing Scott's name on there and I'm compelled to put him on the spot in terms of what the team has been working. So we're going to look at how we can get a little bit more detail in the approach so far. I saw the survey. I saw some of the details that are in there. I think we need to add just a little bit of context and then find a way forward in terms of how we can, again, effectively engage and provide more specifics. Because one thing I did appreciate for those who saw what was shared that will be covered to an extent in tomorrow's city council meeting is also some of the Beaverton Action Climate Plan action items that tie into it. So definitely want to use that as a mechanism to put it in practice, really like apply whatever we have been working towards, which is creating sort of consensus-driven recommendations and something very concrete and tangible. Yeah, I think one of the feedback that we had also given to Jerry and Sarah was around, as you are approaching the work that you are, I think being able to highlight and surface this idea of sustainability of all of these actions. Like, it is an opportunity. Any of these surveys is a touch point. And every survey, you should frame it in a way that everyone is thinking about it, and this is top of mind. It isn't just something on the side that we will also do as a flavor or a topping. No, it is one of the key ingredients. Like, that was a feedback that we have communicated, and we'll continue to push that. So I think, to your point, Reggie, I think there's a ton we can do, and we definitely want to keep, coming up with great feedback. And again, today was a great example. I think everyone saw the type of question and the type of recommendations that we have, and I'm sure everyone will appreciate that value. Maggie, Fredy, anything else to add?
I don't. Thank you, Syed. I think that really summed things up nicely.
I think we had a couple of housekeeping things. One of them was just sort of the email chain and thread and how we have been having to manage the communication. So we're still trying to get that right. Thank you for everyone who did provide feedback to the Cooper Mountain Community Planning. I think the approach we have taken is just making sure, like, if you have something shared with us, BCC everyone so everyone has it. I think one ask we have is, if it is specifically for us, maybe call out like leaders versus the whole task force, because when you're BCC'd on something, it's hard to know what is coming where kind of thing. So that will help, whether it's in the subject or in the email somewhere, if you can specify that. But for now, I think we'll continue to, so if you do have any feedback, you can continue to send it to us or share with all, and we'll have to kind of use that as a way to compile, collate, and then share back, read back, and then provide recommendations. That's like, trying to think if there was anything else. That was the big one, where know which one is which, because that wasn't always clear. I think in the last 9 minutes, and I know we want to give some time for public testimony, although I don't know if you have anyone for that. For May, just to give you guys a heads up, we were trying to do a little bit more open time so that we can work together. I feel like our agendas get packed and we have a lot of partners and people come in, but we don't get a lot of time to like really talk to each other. And this is really one of our key time and platform. So just a heads up, it will likely not be as packed, and there will be more time for collaboration. So expect maybe some breakout rooms and a combination of different exercises. If you have any suggestions or recommendations or things or topics that you want us to dig into or areas that we want to expand on, working off of what we did back in March or even earlier in February, then please send it our way. We'll be happy to like take that into account as we plan for it. Anything else to add? I think that was really it from my perspective. Now I'm thinking you guys were talking a lot the last hour and a half and I was quiet, and now that I'm talking, nobody else wants to. So just joking. Go ahead, Reggie.
Hey, I'm just kind of thinking on the fly right now, but I know that Tualatin Soil and Water Conservation District has a $100,000 grant available. And I just think it would be really good if THPRD, school district, or the city applied for that to help fund a year of trees. And then look at additional funding sources like grants, like nature and neighborhoods from Metro. There are so many offered at like a regional and state level that we could look into. I guess I'll elaborate too, because something just popped in my mind. As a neighborhood association, I know it's really hard to come up with the money for these big projects because we only have like $3,000 to $5,000 in our treasury at once, and we're not gonna be able to get $100,000 to pay for trees, and then even if it's reimbursed, it's great. So that's why I'm hoping that these large agencies can step in and help support with getting these grants.
So for us, are we trying to just bridge that and say, hey, these other organizations who are doing the work, can we help like direct them to this, here's an income source or a source of revenue that can help fulfill that? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, along those lines. And I know that some groups like THPRD in the city are already planting trees. So I don't know what their current mechanisms are for that, but I would say like continue what we're doing or enhance and improve the processes of what we're already doing, but then seek additional funding to expand on that so that we can be a lot closer to that 10,000 number.
Yeah, no, that's a good feedback. Take note.
I know that we only have 5 minutes left, so I kind of just want to be mindful of giving a couple minutes of opportunity for public comment if there is any. Okay, I don't see anyone for public comment, so I'll make a note of that.
Awesome. So thank you, everyone. Again, it's really great. Looking forward to next month. And I'm sure we'll be sharing and talking via email as between now and then. Sorry, just this is why I was trying to.
I love it. I love it.
Do you want to say hello? Hello. Okay. Yeah, that's it. I don't know if Fredy, Kevin, was there anything else, or we good to end a few minutes early?
No, I think that's it, everyone. Thank you all for your attention. I know that was a lot of information tonight. As always, if you have comments after the meeting on anything you've heard about tonight, feel free to send them to me or to sustainability at beavertonoregon.gov or to any of the members of the leadership team, and we'll make sure that they get to the right people where they need to get to. And we will see you all next month.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Care.
Say bye. Say bye. Bye.